Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Westboro, the COVID-19 edition. If you haven't been with us before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an elder law attorney at Myrick O'Connell, where actually our offices are right here in Westboro. But this is not about elder law. This is about my friends Frank and Mary. If you've seen one of my presentations, you know that Frank and Mary's goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that's Westboro, that means here. You don't want to be in faraway San Diego, or you don't even want to be in Marlboro, where I live. You want to be right here. So in order to help Frank and Mary, and you do that, I've got this great co-host, Shelby Marshall. We've been doing this now for a long time, because she always gets these great guests that can speak to issues that she thinks may be really important to you folks. And I know we've been doing these shows more over the last few months. This is the COVID-19 edition, because we know that Frank and Mary and you as seniors are uniquely affected by coronavirus, right? Because you're uniquely vulnerable, and the issues are changing a lot regarding you. So thank you very much, Shelby, for inviting this great guest, although I'm delighted to say that your guest here, who represents a little bit of you, represents all of us, or almost all of us here in Marlboro, and is from Marlboro. So I've known Danielle for a long time. Shelby, whom do we have today?
Sure. Well, first of all, Arthur, welcome back from vacation. Love the new glasses, love the look, and I hope you had a great time off. We missed you, but it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
So today's guest is Representative Danielle Gregoire. She is no stranger to our viewers. I will certainly ask her to introduce herself in the district she represents. But the timing is everything, as we say in life, because I opened up the Boston Globe, and on not necessarily the front page, but it was all about the budget. And as a selectman, as one of the 5 members that represents the town, we are anxiously awaiting the ability to finalize our 2021 budget. And we can't do that without the help of our good representatives and the work that's done on Capitol Hill. So Danielle, welcome. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having me again. This is my first time joining you in a remote fashion, but I have been a guest on the show before, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you again. My name is Danielle Gregoire. I currently serve as the state representative for the 4th Middlesex District, which includes parts of the city of Marlboro and the towns of Northborough and Westboro. I've been in that capacity since the redistricting after the last census in 2010 occurred. I was reelected in 2011 and started serving this district in 2012. So it's, again, great to be back with you today, and so much up in the air right now. And I will get right down to it, Shelby. To the budget, we have been passing 1/12 budgets, as you know, and I think for right now, we find that is the way to go. We are trying to hold our cities and towns harmless as much as possible for as long as possible, with the fervent hope that the federal government will come in and provide relief to cities and towns through the state. And without that potential relief, we are going to be hurting for certain. So we understand the sort of anxiety that is created around not knowing, but with the full promise that if we gave you the numbers now as we see them, it would be a bigger hurt, right? So we're trying to do everything we can to stem the tide. And as far as we're concerned, the uncertainty is better than the prospect of what the numbers would look like right now. With that having been said, I have been pushing the legislature traditionally in a 2-year cycle. We are in the 2nd year of that cycle. We break on July 31st at midnight for the rest of the year. It wouldn't meet again until January. I have been pushing, as has the House as a whole, to continue meeting in legislative session after that July 31st deadline. It is my belief that the Senate president had been pushing back on that, but has come to realize that because there are so many things in the hopper right now, we can't just, walk away on July 31st. Not to mention, when none of us can go anywhere. So
I heard Rhode Island is even saying we don't want you Massachusetts people, but that's for another
Rhode Island, Maine. It's so 3 things led me to write this pretty strongly worded letter to the speaker, encouraging us to extend formal session. We're facing a second surge. We don't know when but all the doctors say that it's going to happen, and unless we prepare for it and continue to be taking the precautions we've been taking, it will be worse than the first surge. And all of this pain and suffering and horrible financial problems and isolation and all of these things that people have gone through will have been for naught, because if we get to a second surge and it's worse and we have to shut it all down again, the coming back from that, I don't even want to think about it. So I try to stay hopeful and commend the governor and the job that he's done to this point. I think he needs to start being a little bit stronger now. And to that point, sorry, I'll just keep rolling unless you want to interrupt me.
This is great.
Okay. To that point, the Speaker of the House has appointed a special committee on resiliency and recovery. It's 15 members out of the 160 of the House of Representatives, and I serve as one of the appointees to that committee.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been able to bring the concerns of our area, whether it's restaurants and small businesses. We had a lot of hotspots in our senior living facilities, as you are both aware, whether it was at Beaumont in Westboro. Of my opinion, when the owners of that facility moved their residents out of their Worcester facility to create a COVID-only facility and did so without testing those residents, then created mini hotspots in all the other all the other places. So Beaumont had an issue. Marlboro Hills was having a severe issue. The reservoir at Marlboro was having an issue. Coleman House in Northborough was having. So we are going to both be looking back at what was done and looking forward. And last night at about 8 o'clock, a bill was released to the floor that we were expecting, and we will continue to debate today to permanently extend the governor's order on telehealth that happened at the beginning of this, which he did in a temporary fashion, because we've seen firsthand how it works for folks. Right. And it's working specifically in the fields of mental health and of chronic disease management. So I have high blood pressure. Weird, right? Because I'm only like 22. I don't know how it happened, but
could be something to do with your job. I don't know.
It might be. That's a valid concern.
Yeah, so but for people who are watching, Danielle actually used to speak faster than this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I remember that. I remember seeing Danielle. It was great because Danielle always had the effect on me of making me feel like I spoke slow, which was, for me, it's really saying something. Right?
Sorry, I'll try to slow down. My grandfather did always used to yell at me to enunciate.
Just remember, you're talking to me and these old people, Danielle.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So we are going to make permanent the telehealth issues. And so chronic disease management, if you have cardiovascular health issues or high cholesterol or high blood pressure or diabetes in some instances, that is manageable through telehealth visits with your doctor. So we are extending that to a permanent status. The reimbursements will be have parity with traditional in-office visits. So it's keeping folks out of healthcare facilities where they would be exposed to COVID-19 potentially, and keeping them in their homes, but making sure that their health isn't failing as a result of their fear of seeking treatment for an underlying condition.
So Danielle, can I just ask you a question there? So I've had some personal experience with telehealth, and I've seen experiences where it works well and where other areas where, particularly for a family member, where it was challenging just because of cognition as well as hard of hearing and just the technology. So just to be clear, my understanding is for telehealth, it creates options for individuals, but you're not required to do it. It's really a consultation with your provider, your physician, to say, is this a better option for me that maybe doesn't expose me? But if you choose to go in the office, that's still for treatment. That's still an option.
That's 100% correct. And there are telehealth options specifically through the telephone for people who don't have video capabilities. And then there are video. And I think one thing that's really important, especially in more remote parts of the state, which luckily we're not, although sometimes it feels like we are, in the Berkshires and on Cape Cod, they don't have access to neurosurgeons or, some of these complicated. So doctors can then teleconference with one another, which is going to be unprecedentedly helpful to the folks that live in the hinterlands, as we call them, or the Golden West, as my colleagues refer to it.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it to conduct all, types of business. I mean, I'm totally in favor of this. So thank you for your role in supporting it. I think extending it permanently is the right thing to do, particularly around mental health, where providers are so sparse, but it creates an opportunity for someone who may find a provider outside of their immediate area, but in
Right.
their health network, but lives in the Berkshires, right? So,
Right.
you can, Zoom or whatever the process is with them.
So, and just so folks kind of get an idea of why we have to debate this and what might be taking so long, one of the amendments that I filed was on behalf of 1-800 contacts, because some of the requirements in the language as written are you have to have actually seen said provider in order to get a prescription from said provider. In the case of something like a 1-800 contacts, or perhaps a Warby Parker where Art got his fancy new glasses, they're not a provider per se. So you wouldn't have seen them for your diagnosis or your prescription, but then they provide. So we're trying to ensure that folks that are currently providing services of that nature will be able to continue. So that, when you do a major overhaul like that, there are always a few things that get lost in the cracks. So
good catch. That's sort of like, yeah, well, I won't go back to part D in the donut hole. So that was all right. So what else do you have for us? So telemedicine, that's great. And you're on this resiliency committee.
That's right. So, and the telemedicine is a result of the work of the Resiliency Committee. Yesterday, we did an economic development bill. We've been trying to do whatever we can to help, especially local small businesses. We passed a second restaurant relief package on June 3rd that the Senate then kind of whittled down and passed in a smaller version that would allow for takeout cocktails in addition to beer and wine. And more importantly, included an amendment that I filed on behalf of a couple of local business owners here in Marlboro that had delayed the collection of their restaurant meals tax. So they're collecting it as a user fee from us when we go there, but it gave them a little bit of wiggle room as far as operating capital, and then would have them, more cash on hand to operate. And that we delayed the collection, but made the collection imminent so that they didn't get too far into using that money, right? The Senate did not include that in their restaurant relief package. So we did an economic development bill yesterday, and I filed it as an amendment to that, and it was accepted. So we're trying to figure out, the little ways that we can help folks. We did a revolving fund where businesses could apply for funds for PPE or for physical improvements that would allow them to open under COVID restrictions, which has been tremendously helpful. In Westboro, you have Arturo's, and they would be eligible for some money to go towards paying for their tent, or some of the furniture that they had to order. Other restaurants have used physical barriers in parking lots, and that some of that has been reimbursable. So we're really trying to help, especially small, locally owned and operated businesses, with however we can to help them survive throughout this. And that includes me. I just ate dinner at Arturo's on Saturday night with my parents.
Thank you for supporting our businesses locally.
So we're just really trying to do everything we can. By way of our seniors specifically, obviously that's important to your audience. And we have been, I've been in constant contact. My staff on my office operating remotely have been reaching out to anyone who is over the age of 70 in the district, making phone calls daily just to check in, see if anybody needs anything. And those folks will all receive a letter from my office either this week or next week following up. If you need PPE, please let me know. I know that the Westboro Senior Center has been active in reaching out to try to combat isolation. And I worked with Alma over there a couple of weeks ago. They did the Table Talk pie delivery, so I was able to go out and deliver some pies, which nobody was home. I don't know where everybody was, or maybe they were just afraid to answer the door. But so I was leaving pies and then texting Alma saying, you have to call these people because the raccoons will come if they don't come out here and get this pie soon. Because I'm telling you right now, the critters are taking over.
Well, my mother-in-law received one, and it truly brightened her day. She also had received some flowers around, I think it was Memorial Day, and it's amazing how a simple gesture represents connection, and it's so important because I think that social isolation has been just continues to be one of the worst things. It's certainly terrible for our seniors, and I know sort of as a middle-aged person now, I'm feeling it, and the kids are feeling it. So thank you for reaching out. I'm curious, what are you hearing from your senior constituents, regardless of where they live? Like, what are their concerns? What are they struggling with?
I mean, to be honest, we don't have a lot of complaints per se coming from the seniors.
Mm-hmm.
The folks that we're helping the most are the folks that are having issues with their unemployment. So, you know, in large part, seniors aren't part of the workforce, so that's not an issue that they face. My parents, for instance, who hopefully aren't watching this because they hate when I talk about them, they use the Marlboro Senior Center regularly. My dad works out there. He has his little ping pong group that he plays with. My mom plays cards on Thursdays, and they go to all the meals. So they're really missing that.
Yeah.
And I was actually at a group at the Westboro Senior Center last week of dementia caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke my heart to hear the stories. So I think the caregivers are struggling the most, and the people with loved ones that are in facilities who no longer have the ability to visit them.
Yep.
So actually, as a result of that, I did write a letter to the governor. You know, I understand he's trying to keep people safe physically,
Yep.
but these caregivers have been isolated too because they're not going out because they knew that someday they would be able to go visit again. So they've been trying to stay safe themselves. Right. And so I'm trying to figure out a way that we can allow that to happen, but keeping people safe.
Yeah. You know, my view on that, honestly, is being in the industry as well, is just that, you know, there's no reason why someone can't gown up, have appropriate PPE to go visit a loved one, and still be safe. You know, you can do temperature checks. There are screening precautions that you can take to make sure the person coming in is safe and manage those individuals. It does take coordination. It takes some investment, but it absolutely can happen, and it should happen, quite honestly, because and it would, you know, it would relieve pressure on the staff that are so overwhelmed at residential facilities as it is. So I think anything you can do to move that needle, to kind of open up access, particularly while the weather's nice. I mean, not everyone can be wheeled outside. I get that. Some people are just, you know, they're in their room and they're confined to it, but we should be able to find ways to do that safely for all parties.
Yeah, I agree with you. And sorry, Art, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I suppose that's one of the advantages of having the resiliency committee and having that in place, especially given the fact, as you alluded to at the beginning, we were all hoping that we had kind of made it past this bump and that things were going to be loosening up. But now that there may be this focus on just making sure we're ready just in case, to know that you've now got all the experience of having gone through it. So to be able to kind of, you know, see what you can tweak in order to make this more manageable, because it does, you know, affect the senior population uniquely, right? And that they're just so cut off, right? And many of them have people who are in these facilities. They're just tough.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, you know, overall, I think the governor has done a fantastic job with managing this crisis. But I think at the beginning, everything was coming at us so hard and fast, right, that we were all just, you know, bailing out the boat, right?
Yes.
And people were calling me saying, how am I going to vote in November? And I said, call me back in 2 months and we'll talk about it then, because I can't deal with you right now. I get you and I see you, but I just can't.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I was happy to see that we all received our mail-in ballots. I think Massachusetts did it right in terms of the process that's required, the signatures, the affidavits, so to speak, that's on there. So kudos amidst all of this to take care of that in a way that, you know, ensures that folks can vote.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, because those folks watching, it's happening now. So everyone who is a registered voter, the legislature acted really quickly on this. Well, not as quickly, but I mean, really quickly to ensure that every registered voter in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts should have received an application in the mail to obtain an early ballot by mail. And so you would fill it out like Shelby. I didn't fill mine out because I love to vote in person. I'm a dork and I can't. I'm not going to. It's my thing. But anyway, but with the municipal elections that we've seen happen so far since all this started, over 50% of the voters have been voting by mail. So we know that it works. We know that it's keeping people out of the polls. We know that it's giving people an option so that they don't have to choose between their physical health and their right to vote. And so you should have received that application. You fill it out. you mail it back, the ballot will come to you, and then you send it back. All the postage is paid, and it will, hopefully also help the poll workers. We did in that legislation, we put more controls in place and more help for the poll workers too, to keep those folks safe, and hopefully we'll keep people safe and get people out to vote, because that's the number one thing we can all do right now, because I think everyone is seeing that local government and state government are the ones that are really impacting their lives if they're watching the national news. And I always said this before. Right. I always said this before, but I say it now more so. I'm grateful every morning that I wake up in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yep.
And by the way, just speaking of those elections, will the same process work in the elections in November?
It will. So
you'll be getting ballots early, which will be like about a month before. Or you'll be getting not ballots, but your request form if you want to request an absentee ballot.
That's actually what went out.
Yeah, the application for the November election should arrive. I think the date we set was sometime in mid-September, so it's quick.
Yeah.
And then the actual ballot will arrive later. Obviously, it's going to take some time once the primary is over to get the ballots printed. And the primary this year, the date was set very early, September 1st. I protested it. I fervently argued that it should be the day after Labor Day. The secretary at the time expressed some concerns about time frame and ability to get ballots ready to mail overseas to absentee voters and to folks in the military. I bet he's regretting it now. But I always love being right. But we're making it work, and we're making it as available to folks as we can. And then on top of that, the deadline to register to vote in that September 1st primary is not until August 22nd. So if folks haven't registered, there is still time. And obviously we want everybody to register that has the desire to do so.
And Westboro will host, we'll have early voting where it's allowed. So it decreases opportunities for interaction with other folks, and disperses kind of crowds. So do stay tuned through the town's website as well as local billboards to be advised of when those dates are coming up.
Yes, that was also part of the legislation. Previously, we hadn't had any early voting for a primary, but we are requiring that now, maybe to the chagrin of some of the city and town clerks.
I was going to say, I don't think our town clerks love it, but it is, I think it is important, particularly where we're at, but it puts an incredible amount of work and stress on those departments.
I agree, 100%.
So go ahead, Arthur, you were going to ask.
I was just going to say, so we have no, and the information that you're waiting for from the federal government, that's really part of the current stimulus package that's in limbo, right?
That's
so
right.
Just no idea, because you've gotten a lot of U.S. Senate pushback regarding the amount that's going to cities and towns, or whether anything's going to cities and towns, or
I know that
the states, right?
And I know that the governor is in contact with our federal delegation, and they are clearly aware that, and as a group, that we want and need that money. Believe it or not, in one of the first stimulus packages that went towards hospital reimbursement, Massachusetts received I think it was 50 out of 51, which included the District of Columbia, for dollars per capita for that hospital reimbursement. So we're advocating loudly and often that we need that money, and hopefully we'll be able to see some relief, because if not, this year's budget, I think, will be okay. It's going to be next year that it'll really hurt.
Well, I think we're going to feel the effects of this for a long time to come.
Agreed.
In countless ways. So I think it's important that we're all in the boat, on the oars, and rowing as best as we can, despite our maybe differences, in the direction that's best for the Commonwealth, and finding creative ways, like you said, to sort of fill in gaps that are there. Your local business example of economic development was a great example of how to improve something even in small ways by delaying payment of the meals tax.
So this has just been like a great summary of kind of what's going on. So we'll always make sure, Danielle, when we invite you, so that there's a big Boston Globe article like just before.
That's right.
we could be responding to that. Just Danielle, stay here for a second. I just want to ask Shelby once again, kind of what we try to do traditionally on the show is at the very end, we just want to we want to ask if there's something happening locally that folks should really be kind of aware of, and then we'll tune off. Shelby, anything new and exciting?
You know what, there's not enough time in the 3 minutes that our producer today, Jeff, has told us about, but lots going on. I'm hoping to have as one of our near-term future guests, our DPW director, to talk about complete streets. We are in the process, we've received a grant for that, and I think folks would be very interested in what that is and how it works. But we have been going nonstop as a board, as have our town departments, keeping the day-to-day business of the town moving forward. We have had a lot of interesting meetings. Last night at our Board of Selectmen meeting, we've determined that we will be putting an article on the town warrant to allow the voters to discuss, debate, and determine whether or not our town seal should be changed. And I would encourage viewers to watch the replay of that meeting. Again, that was the 7/28 meeting where we had our local history librarian talk about seals and the history of Eli Whitney, his relationship to Westboro, and so forth. Very informative. So lots going on. We want to put it to a vote and let the residents decide, and but lots of really good work being done in so many different ways.
Thank you. So thank you, Shelby. Once again, you get great guests, right? Even some of them I know, some of them I don't. They're always terrific. Danielle, I know that this being an even year, you'll be on the ballot later this year. I know Shelby and I were talking about even doing like a little candidates forum or something, so that once again people can kind of get a sense, and now based on this conversation about the absentee ballots going out early. We might really want to think about doing that kind of sooner rather than later, because that's really important.
It's definitely changed our schedule.
Yeah,
for sure.
By the way, Arthur, Danielle needs a Frank and Mary mug. Just
a Frank and Mary.
Yeah, for sure.
Consider it done.
All
okay,
right.
173 Greenwood Street.
It'll get handled. I was going to show you I can't. I don't have it. Brent, my paralegal stole it, right?
And I know we're running low on time, but I just want to make a quick announcement. I just had a text from the Speaker's office that we are going to extend session. The order is going to be done today. So hot off the presses. You heard it here.
Congratulations. Thank you, Danielle Gregoire. It was just great, Representative Gregoire, to have you on again. Tell your folks I said hello. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Shelby Marshall. This is always a lot of fun. And folks, thank you for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Westboro, the COVID-19 edition. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Danielle.